In the small Nigerian town of Adekunle, tucked away in the lush countryside of Ogun State, everyone knew Marcus Adebayo, and they all wished they didn't. At just 12 years old, Marcus had become the town's biggest nightmare. There wasn't a single day that passed without someone complaining about him. And his poor mother, Mrs. Adebayo, bore the weight of it all. It started early in the morning. While other children were sweeping their compounds and fetching water before school, Marcus would sneak into Baba Tun's yam farm and uproot the best tubers, taking one bite out of each before throwing them into the gutter. When Baba Tun confronted him, Marcus would laugh in his face. "Baba, what will you do? Chase me with your walking stick?" Marcus would taunt, knowing the elderly farmer's bad leg prevented him from running after him. Mrs. Adebayo would rush over with her wrapper tied tightly around her waist, apologizing profusely and offering to pay for the damages. She worked as a seamstress in the town market, her fingers often bleeding from long hours of hand-stitching ankara and lace materials for weddings and ceremonies. Yet she had to use her hard-earned naira to cover her son's destruction. But Marcus didn't care. Not one bit. "Mama, why do you keep apologizing for me?" he would snap at her when they got home. "I'm not a baby. Stop embarrassing me in front of these people." Mrs. Adebayo would wipe her tears with the edge of her wrapper and say nothing. What could she say? Her son had a heart of stone. On Mondays, Marcus would wait outside Mama Ngozi's buka, the small food canteen where she sold jollof rice, fried plantain, and her famous pepper soup. The aroma of spices and palm oil filled the air, drawing hungry customers from all over town. But Marcus wasn't there to buy food. The moment Mama Ngozi turned her back to stir the big pot of rice, Marcus would grab 3 or 4 wraps of akara or puff-puff from her display tray and run, leaving Mama Ngozi shouting curses after him in Yoruba. "Oh, thief! God will punish you, Marcus Adebayo. Your mother's tears will follow you." But Marcus would just laugh, eating one wrap and throwing the others to the mongrel dogs that roamed the dusty streets. He didn't even want all the food. He just enjoyed the chaos, the power of taking what wasn't his. On Tuesdays, it was Pastor Adeyemi's bicycle. The pastor was a gentle old man who had been preaching at the Emmanuel Gospel Church for 30 years. His bicycle was his pride and joy, a black Raleigh that he rode every evening to lead Bible study. Marcus discovered that if he loosened the bolts on the bicycle's wheels just before evening service, the wheels would wobble dangerously and sometimes fall off completely while the pastor was riding. The first time it happened, Pastor Adeyemi fell and scraped his knee badly. Marcus watched from behind the hibiscus bush near the church, laughing silently as church members rushed to help the elderly pastor. Later that evening, Pastor Adeyemi came to their small bungalow, limping slightly. Mrs. Adebayo was mortified when she heard what had happened. "Pastor, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to do with this boy anymore. I've prayed, I've flogged him, I've begged him. Nothing works." Pastor Adeyemi looked at Marcus, who was sitting in the corner of their small parlor, playing a game on a cracked phone screen, completely unbothered. "Marcus, my son," the pastor said gently, "do you know that the Bible says, 'Honor your father and mother, that your days may be long'? You are bringing shame to your mother. You are bringing sorrow to this community." Marcus didn't even look up from his phone. "Pastor, I'm not interested in your Bible stories. My father left us, so why should I honor anyone?" Mrs. Adebayo gasped. Pastor Adeyemi's face fell with sadness. He blessed their home and left quietly, shaking his head. That night, Mrs. Adebayo didn't eat. She knelt by her bed, her Bible open to Proverbs, tears soaking the pages as she prayed for her wayward son. Wednesdays were reserved for school, when Marcus bothered to attend. He had been suspended from community primary school 4 times that year alone. His teacher, Mrs. Okafor, had nearly resigned because of him. One Wednesday morning, Mrs. Okafor had prepared a science experiment to show the students how plants grow. She had carefully planted bean seeds in small pots, nurturing them for 2 weeks until they sprouted beautiful green shoots. She was so excited to show the children. But when she arrived at school that morning, all the pots were smashed on the classroom floor, soil and broken stems everywhere. And written on the chalkboard in white chalk were the words, "Mrs. Okafor is a witch." The whole class had seen Marcus do it. He arrived early and destroyed everything while the other students watched from the windows, too afraid to stop him. Mrs. Okafor stood in her classroom doorway and wept. 25 years of teaching, and she had never felt so defeated. The headmaster, Mr. Okonkwo, was a large man with a stern face and a deep voice that made children tremble. But even he was at his wits' end with Marcus. "Mrs. Adebayo," he said, sitting behind his wooden desk with his hands folded, "I have given your son more chances than any student in the history of this school. But this wickedness, I cannot tolerate it anymore." Mrs. Adebayo sat across from him, her head bowed in shame. Marcus sat beside her, swinging his legs and examining his fingernails as if they were discussing the weather. He destroyed school property. He disrespected a teacher. He has influenced other students to misbehave. I am suspending him for 2 weeks. And if there is one more incident, just one, he will be expelled permanently. "Please, sir," Mrs. Adebayo begged, her voice breaking. "Don't expel him. School is all he has. Without education, what will become of him? That is not my problem anymore, madam. You need to ask yourself what kind of child you are raising." Those words cut deeper than any knife. Mrs. Adebayo stood up slowly, gathered her handbag, and walked out of the office. Marcus followed, whistling carelessly. On the walk home, she finally broke down. Right there on the dusty road, with people passing by on their okadas and women carrying basins of goods on their heads, Mrs. Adebayo collapsed to her knees and wailed, "Marcus, what have I done to deserve this? What did I do wrong? Your father abandoned us when you were small, and I have worked day and night to feed you, clothe you, send you to school. And this is what you give me? Shame? Disgrace? Heartbreak?" People stopped to stare. Some women came to comfort her, helping her to her feet. But Marcus just stood there, looking at the ground, his jaw clenched. "Mama, get up. You're embarrassing yourself," he muttered. That evening, the whole town was talking about Mrs. Adebayo's breakdown. Women gathered in small groups, shaking their heads. "That boy is cursed," Mama Ifioma said. "No, he's possessed," another woman replied. "There must be evil spirits in him. His father's family rejected them when the man ran away with that Lagos woman. Maybe there's a curse on the boy," someone else suggested. But Mrs. Adebayo didn't believe in curses. She believed her son had simply chosen to be wicked. Thursdays and Fridays were when Marcus and his gang of followers terrorized the town market. There were 3 other boys, Emeka, Chidi, and Tund, but Marcus was their undisputed leader. They weren't as bold or as cruel as Marcus, but they followed him because he made them feel powerful. They would roam through the market stalls, tipping over baskets of tomatoes and watching them roll and splatter on the ground. They would untie the ropes holding up the tarps that provided shade for the traders, causing the heavy fabric to collapse on people's heads. One Thursday, they found Mama Shade's stall, where she sold live chickens. While she was attending to a customer, Marcus opened all the cages. 30 chickens escaped, running in every direction, causing absolute chaos in the market. Women screamed, traders chased after their goods, feathers flew everywhere. Mama Shade lost half her chickens that day. When she found out it was Marcus, she went straight to their house. "Your son released all my chickens," she shouted at Mrs. Adebayo. "Do you know how much money I lost? Do you know I have 7 children to feed? That boy is a devil." Mrs. Adebayo gave her everything she had earned that week, 5,000 naira, to compensate for the loss. It was meant to pay their electricity bill and buy food for the rest of the month. That night, they ate only gari and salt. Marcus complained that he was hungry and wanted meat. "There is no meat," his mother said quietly, staring at her plate. "Why not? You're always cooking something." "Because I had to pay for the chickens you released today. So this is all we have." Marcus pushed his plate away. "This is rubbish. I'm not eating this nonsense." Mrs. Adebayo looked up at him, her eyes empty of tears. She had none left to cry. "Then starve," she said simply, and continued eating her gari in silence. On weekends, Marcus's behavior reached new levels of cruelty. One Saturday, he and his friends found a litter of puppies behind Baba Joshua's shop. The mother dog had given birth just 2 weeks earlier, and the puppies were tiny, barely able to open their eyes. While Emeka and Chidi wanted to play with them gently, Marcus had other ideas. He picked up one puppy by its leg and swung it around like a toy. When Tund protested, Marcus threw the puppy against a wall. The puppy yelped, a sound so heartbreaking that even Marcus's friends were horrified. The mother dog came running, barking frantically. "Marcus, that's too much," Emeka said, his voice shaking. "You could have killed it." Marcus laughed. "It's just a stupid dog. Who cares? But that incident was the last straw for his friends. One by one, they began to distance themselves from Marcus. Even boys who admired his boldness realized he wasn't just mischievous. He was genuinely cruel. Soon, Marcus was walking the town alone, and he preferred it that way. Another Saturday, he broke into the community hall where the town's youth association stored equipment for their annual Christmas celebration. He poured palm oil all over the costumes meant for the Christmas play, destroyed the decorations, and smashed the nativity scene that had been handcrafted by the local carpenter. The town elders called an emergency meeting. Chief Adewale, the most respected man in Adekunle, stood before the gathered crowd. "We cannot continue like this," he declared, his voice booming with authority. "This boy, Marcus Adebayo, has become a plague on our community. Something must be done." Some people suggested taking him to a native doctor to cure whatever was wrong with him. Others suggested beating sense into him. A few women suggested prayer and fasting. But Mrs. Adebayo stood up, her face gaunt from stress and sleepless nights. "Please," she said, her voice barely audible. "Give me one more chance with my son. I will handle it. I promise." Chief Adewale looked at her with pity. "Mrs. Adebayo, we have given you many chances. But very soon, this boy will do something we cannot forgive. And when that day comes, not even your tears will save him." On Sundays, Mrs. Adebayo would drag Marcus to church. She would grip his hand tightly as they walked, because if she let go even for a second, he would run away. At Emmanuel Gospel Church, Marcus would sit in the back row, making faces at younger children, flicking paper balls at the choir, and loudly yawning during sermons. He once brought a grasshopper in a matchbox and released it during the pastor's prayer, causing women to scream and jump on the benches. After service, while other families chatted and laughed in the church compound, Mrs. Adebayo would stay behind in the empty church, kneeling at the altar. "God, if you are there, if you hear me, please help my son," she would pray, her voice breaking. "I have failed as a mother. I have tried everything. I am tired. I am so tired." Marcus would wait outside, sitting under the mango tree, picking his teeth with a twig, completely unmoved by his mother's anguish. The weeks leading up to Christmas were usually the happiest time in Adekunle. The town would come alive with decorations, palm fronds woven into crosses, colorful lights strung between houses, and the smell of freshly baked chin-chin and puff-puff filling the air. But this year, there was an undercurrent of tension. The incident at the community hall had left people angry and fearful. What would Marcus do next? 2 weeks before Christmas, everything came to a head. Marcus got into a fight with Segan, a boy his age, over a football game. When Segan scored a goal that Marcus disputed, Marcus picked up a broken bottle from the ground and slashed Segan's arm. The cut was deep. Blood poured from the wound. Segan's screams brought adults running from every direction. They rushed Segan to the health clinic, where Nurse Amaka stitched him up with 12 stitches. Segan's parents were wealthy. His father worked in Lagos and sent money home regularly. They threatened to call the police, to press charges, to make sure Marcus went to juvenile detention. Only Chief Adewale's intervention and Mrs. Adebayo's desperate pleading stopped them. She promised to pay for all medical bills. She went on her knees before Segan's parents, begging for mercy. "Please, don't destroy my son's life. I will make him pay for this. I promise." Segan's father looked down at her with disgust. "Your son is a menace. Keep him away from my child. If he comes near Segan again, I will not be this merciful." The headmaster made good on his promise. Marcus was expelled from community primary school permanently. That night, Mrs. Adebayo sat Marcus down at their small dining table. The single bulb hanging from the ceiling flickered, casting shadows across her tired face. "Marcus," she said, her voice eerily calm. "Do you hate me? Tell me the truth. Is that why you do these things?" Marcus looked away, picking at a scratch on the wooden table. "I asked you a question. Do you hate me?" "No," he muttered. "Then why? Why do you cause me so much pain? Why do you bring shame to our family? Your father left us, yes, but that is not my fault. I have loved you with everything I have. So tell me, why?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "I don't know, okay? I do what I want. People can't control me." Mrs. Adebayo laughed, a hollow, broken sound. "You think you're strong because you don't listen to anyone? You think you're powerful because you hurt people? You're not strong, Marcus. You're weak. And you're going to learn that the hard way." She stood up and walked to her bedroom, closing the doors softly behind her. Marcus sat alone in the dim light, feeling something he rarely felt, a small flicker of discomfort. But he pushed it away quickly. He didn't need anyone. He didn't need his mother's approval. He was Marcus Adebayo. He feared nothing and no one. Christmas Eve arrived with a beautiful sunrise. The town was buzzing with excitement. Children rehearsing Christmas carols, women preparing special meals, men setting up decorations in the church and town square. But in the Adebayo household, there was only cold silence. Mrs. Adebayo had barely spoken to Marcus in days. That morning, she prepared a small breakfast of bread and akamu and left it on the table before heading out early to help with the church Christmas preparations. Before she left, she stopped at Marcus's bedroom door. He was still sleeping, sprawled across his mattress. She watched him for a long moment, tears forming in her eyes. Then she spoke, her voice firm and clear. "Marcus, if you hear nothing else I've ever said to you, hear this. Do not go to the old part of town today. Do not go near Ojo Street. Children disappear from there every Christmas Eve. Every single year. I am begging you. Please, just this once, listen to me." Marcus stirred but didn't open his eyes. Mrs. Adebayo waited, hoping for a response, but got none. She sighed deeply and left, closing the door behind her. Marcus woke up an hour later. The house was empty and quiet. He ate half the bread and left the rest. He wasn't in the mood for akamo. As he stepped outside, he could hear the sounds of celebration throughout the town. Laughter, music, the excited chatter of children. It all irritated him. That's when he remembered his mother's warning about Ojo Street. A slow smile spread across his face. Of course, she told him not to go there, so that's exactly where he would go. Not because he wanted to see what was there, but simply because she told him not to. Marcus Adebayo did whatever he wanted, and nobody could stop him. He started walking through the town, and as always, people noticed him. Mothers pulled their children inside their compounds. Shopkeepers watched their goods carefully. An elderly woman actually spat on the ground as he passed, a gesture to ward off evil. Marcus loved it. The fear, the hatred, the attention. He found Tommy, his only remaining friend, near the junction, helping his younger brother fix a broken toy car. "Tommy, come, let's go somewhere." Tommy looked up, immediately suspicious. After the puppy incident, even he had started keeping his distance from Marcus. "Go where?" "To Ojo Street." Tommy's eyes went wide with shock. "Are you mad? You want to die? You know what they say about that place. It's just stupid stories to scare small children like you." "Marcus, your mother will kill you. My mother will kill me. Why do you always do this? Why can't you just be normal for once?" "Because I'm not normal," Marcus said with a grin. "I'm different. Are you coming or not?" Tommy stood up, his heart torn. He didn't want Marcus to go alone. Despite everything, Marcus was still his friend. "Okay, but only to the halfway point. After that, I'm turning back. I mean it." They walked together through Adekunal, past the market where traders called out Christmas greetings, past the church where the choir was practicing, past the primary school with its locked gates and empty playground. The path to Ojo Street was unmarked but well known. It was the oldest part of town, where the original settlers had built their homes over 100 years ago. Most of those houses were now abandoned and crumbling, taken over by bush and creeping vines. Nobody went there anymore, especially not on Christmas Eve. As they walked, the sounds of the town began to fade. The cheerful music became distant. The laughter disappeared. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. The air grew cooler, and the sunlight seemed dimmer somehow, as if the trees formed a canopy that blocked out joy itself. Tommy stopped abruptly at what locals called the halfway mark, an ancient Irako tree with roots that spread across the path like gnarled fingers. "This is it," Tommy said, his voice shaking. "This is as far as I go. Marcus, please. Let's go back. You've proved you're not afraid. That's enough. You go back. I'm going all the way." "Marcus," Tommy's voice cracked with desperation. Tears formed in his eyes. "You're my best friend, even though you do terrible things. I don't want anything bad to happen to you. Your mother, she's already so sad. She cries every night. Everyone in town talks about it. Don't do this to her. Please." For a brief moment, just a flicker, something crossed Marcus's face. Doubt, guilt, regret? But then his stubbornness hardened his features. "I said I'm going. You can stay here like a coward if you want." Marcus turned and walked forward, not looking back. Marcus, Tommy shouted, his voice echoing through the empty path. Please, come back. But Marcus kept walking, his figure getting smaller and smaller until he disappeared around a bend in the overgrown path. Tommy stood there, trembling. He wanted to follow, wanted to drag Marcus back to safety, but fear kept his feet rooted to the spot. After several minutes, he turned and ran back toward town, tears streaming down his face. He knew something terrible was about to happen. He could feel it in his bones. Marcus continued alone down Ojo Street. The abandoned houses loomed on either side, their walls covered in moss, their roofs caved in, their windows like empty eye sockets staring at him. The path was overgrown with elephant grass and wild plants. The only sound was the crunch of his sandals on the dirt and the occasional rustle of something moving in the bushes. For the first time in his life, Marcus felt genuine fear creeping up his spine. The stories whispered in Adecunnal came back to him. Children who came here on Christmas Eve and were never seen again. The mother who searched for her daughter for years, going mad with grief. The boy who returned after 3 days, unable to speak, his hair turned completely white. Marcus pushed the fear down. He wouldn't let superstition control him. He wasn't like the other weak-minded fools in town. But the deeper he walked into Ojo Street, the colder it became. His breath came out in small white puffs. The shadows seemed to move in the corners of his vision. That's when he saw the old man. He stood in the middle of the abandoned street, leaning on a wooden walking stick. He wore a faded agbada, the traditional flowing robe, that had once been white but was now yellowed with age. His face was deeply wrinkled, his hair white like cotton wool, his beard long and unkempt. But his eyes were sharp and clear, gleaming with an intelligence that seemed to pierce right through Marcus. Marcus walked right past him without a word, without even acknowledging his presence. Young man, the old man's voice was raspy but strong, carrying a weight of authority. Did your mother not teach you manners? You pass an elder without greeting? Marcus stopped and turned, irritation flashing across his face. Old man, I didn't come here to greet anybody. Mind your business. The old man studied him for a long, uncomfortable moment. Then, slowly, he reached into a worn cloth bag hanging from his shoulder. He pulled out something wrapped in banana leaves, the traditional way of wrapping food. When he unwrapped it, Marcus saw a beautiful piece of Christmas cake. It was unlike any cake Marcus had ever seen. Rich, dark, studded with raisins and candied fruits, and it smelled absolutely incredible. The aroma of spices, butter, and something else, something magical, filled the air. Here, the old man said, extending it toward Marcus. A Christmas gift for a young traveler. Marcus's stomach growled loudly. He hadn't eaten properly that morning, and the cake smelled better than anything Mama Ngozi had ever made at her buka. Without hesitation, without a second thought, he snatched it from the old man's weathered hand. He immediately turned to leave, already peeling back the banana leaves. Wait, child, the old man called out, his voice echoing strangely in the empty street. Are you not going to say thank you? Marcus stopped and looked back, his face twisted with contempt. Thank you? For this smelly piece of cake? Why should I thank anybody for something like this? I don't owe you anything, old man. The old man's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those ancient eyes, something that should have warned Marcus, something that would have made a wiser child run for his life. I see, the old man said quietly, his voice carrying an edge of sadness. Go on then, boy. Enjoy your cake. Marcus scoffed and turned away, walking deeper into Ojo Street as he fully unwrapped the cake. It looked as delicious as it smelled, dark and moist, with a perfect texture that seemed almost too good to be real. He took a huge bite, and his eyes widened. It was the most delicious thing he had ever tasted in his entire life. Sweet but not too sweet, spicy but not overwhelming, rich but not heavy. It was perfect. He took another massive bite, practically shoving it into his mouth, savoring every morsel. But then his fingers began to tingle. It started as a slight sensation, like pins and needles. Marcus looked down at his hands, and his eyes went wide with shock and horror. His fingers were shrinking. The skin was turning gray and furry. His nails were becoming tiny claws. He tried to scream, but his voice came out as a high-pitched squeak, a sound no human throat could make. The cake fell from his rapidly shrinking hands as his arms shortened, his legs compressed, his body contracted. His clothes became enormous around him, swallowing him up. Within seconds, Marcus was no longer a 12-year-old boy. He was a small, gray rat. Panic flooded through his tiny rat body. He looked up, and the old man was standing over him, no longer bent and feeble. He stood tall and straight now, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly golden light that made Marcus's tiny rat heart pound with absolute terror. The old man's voice boomed, echoing through Ojo Street like thunder. Did you think there would be no consequences, child? For years, you have caused pain and suffering to everyone around you. You have hurt your mother, tormented your community, destroyed property, harmed innocent creatures, and shown no respect, no gratitude, no kindness to anyone. Marcus tried to run, his tiny rat legs scrambling desperately against the dirt, but the old man's hand came down and caught him gently but firmly in his palm. You took without thanking. You hurt without caring. You disobeyed without thinking. You rejected every warning, every plea, every tear your mother shed for you. Now you will learn what it means to be powerless, to be small, to be completely at the mercy of others. The old man reached into his bag and pulled out a small bamboo cage, impossibly small to have fit in there, yet somehow it had. The cage was intricately woven, with symbols carved into the bamboo that seemed to glow faintly. He placed Marcus inside and locked it with a tiny brass padlock. 7 days, the old man said, his voice now calm and almost sad, filled with ancient wisdom. 7 days in this cage to reflect on what you have done. 7 days to feel what others have felt because of you. Only when you have truly understood, when genuine remorse fills your heart, when you have truly changed from within, will you be free. Marcus squeaked frantically, scratching at the bamboo bars with his tiny claws, but it was completely useless. The cage was enchanted, unbreakable. The old man carried the cage down Ojo Street to one of the abandoned houses. Despite its dilapidated exterior, inside was surprisingly clean and well-kept. He placed the cage on a wooden table near a window. Through the bamboo bars, Marcus could see Adecunnel in the distance, the town decorated with lights, people celebrating, music playing. He could see the church steeple, the market, the school. Everything that had been his world was now unreachably far away. He squeaked pitifully, but no one could hear him. The old man looked at him one last time. Your mother warned you. Your friend begged you. Your entire community tried to guide you. But you chose pride over wisdom, stubbornness over obedience, cruelty over kindness. Now you will learn. And with that, the old man left, his footsteps fading into silence. Days passed, though to Marcus, trapped in that tiny cage, each day felt like an eternity. At first, he was filled with rage. He scratched at the bars until his tiny paws bled. He squeaked until his throat was raw. He refused to eat the tiny portions of food and water the old man left for him. But eventually, hunger and thirst forced him to eat. And with his basic needs barely met, he had nothing to do but think. He thought about his mother. For the first time in years, he really thought about her. He remembered her face, the tired lines around her eyes, the way her hands trembled when she counted her small earnings, the sound of her crying late at night when she thought he was asleep. He remembered all the time she had apologized for him, all the time she had paid for his destruction from her meager wages, all the time she had begged him, pleaded with him, cried for him. And he had mocked her, called her weak, told her she embarrassed him. The realization hit him like a physical blow. What had he done? He thought about Tommy, his only friend, who had tried to stop him at the halfway point. Tommy, whose eyes had been filled with genuine concern and fear for him. And Marcus had called him a coward and walked away. He thought about Baba Tund, whose yams he had destroyed just for fun. The old man had worked hard to plant those yams, tending them for months, and Marcus had ruined them in minutes. He thought about Mom Ngozi, whose livelihood depended on the food she sold. He had stolen from her countless times, never thinking about her 7 children who needed to eat. He thought about Pastor Adeyemi, who had only ever tried to guide him with gentle words, and whom Marcus had injured and mocked. He thought about Mrs. Okafor, the teacher who had nurtured those plants for weeks just to teach her students something beautiful, and Marcus had destroyed it all and called her a witch. He thought about the puppies, the innocent, helpless puppies, and shame, real, crushing shame, filled his tiny rat body. What kind of monster had he become? In his cage, Marcus wept. Tiny rat tears rolled down his furry cheeks. He had never cried before, not once in all his years of causing chaos. But now, trapped and helpless, he couldn't stop crying. He understood now what it felt like to be powerless, to be at someone else's mercy, to be small and vulnerable and afraid. This was how everyone he had hurt had felt. This terror, this helplessness, this desperation. And the worst part? He deserved it. Every second of this punishment, he deserved. The old man would appear periodically, watching him through the bamboo bars with those ancient, knowing eyes. But he never spoke, just observed and left food and water. By the 7th day, Marcus was completely broken, but not in a bad way. He was broken open, his hard shell of pride and cruelty shattered, allowing something new to emerge. Genuine remorse. Real understanding. True change. That evening, as the sun set on the 7th day, the old man appeared one final time. He studied Marcus carefully through the bars of the cage for what felt like hours. "Have you learned, child?" he asked softly. Marcus nodded his tiny rat head frantically, tears streaming from his small black eyes. If he could speak, he would beg for forgiveness. He would promise to change. He would apologize for everything. The old man's stern face softened into something almost kind. Very well. He opened the bamboo cage, and the moment Marcus's tiny paws touched the wooden table, a warm golden light surrounded him, bright and pure and beautiful. His body began to grow, his fur disappeared, his limbs lengthened. Within moments, he was a boy again, cold, scared, naked, and forever changed. The old man handed him his clothes, which had somehow appeared folded neatly on a chair, clean and pressed. "Go home, Marcus Adebayo," the old man said in English, his voice filled with ancient wisdom. "Go home to your mother, and show her through your actions that you have truly changed. Words mean nothing, only deeds matter now." Marcus dressed quickly, his hands shaking. "Baba, I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "I'm so sorry for everything." "Don't apologize to me," the old man said gently. "Apologize to those you have hurt, starting with your mother. She has cried 7 rivers of tears for you." Marcus nodded, tears streaming down his face. "Thank you, Baba. Thank you for teaching me. I will never forget this." The old man smiled, a sad, wise smile. "Run along now. Your mother thinks you are dead. Every second you delay adds to her suffering." Marcus didn't need to be told twice. He ran. He ran like his life depended on it, his bare feet pounding against the dirt path of Ojo Street. He ran past the abandoned houses, past the ancient Irako tree at the halfway point, back toward the sounds of life and music and home. His lungs burned. His feet bled. But he didn't stop. He burst into the main part of Atakunnel just as Christmas Day was beginning. The celebration was in full swing. People dancing, children playing with new toys, the smell of jollof rice and fried chicken in the air. But when people saw Marcus running, dirty and crying, they stopped and stared in shock. The music faltered. Conversations died. "It's Marcus Adebayo. He's back." But from where? "Somebody call his mother." Marcus didn't stop to explain. He ran straight to his house, his vision blurred with tears. He found his mother inside, sitting at their small dining table in complete darkness. She wasn't celebrating Christmas. She wasn't cooking. She was just sitting there, staring at nothing, her face hollow with grief. She had given up hope. She believed her son was dead. "Mama!" Marcus cried, bursting through the door. Mrs. Adebayo looked up slowly, as if in a dream. When she saw her son, her eyes went wide with shock. For a moment, she didn't move, didn't breathe, as if afraid he was a ghost. Then reality hit her, and she leaped from her chair. "Marcus!" She ran to him and grabbed him, pulling him into her arms with a strength born of desperation. "Marcus! Omomi! My son! My son!" She held him so tightly he could barely breathe, but he didn't care. He wrapped his arms around her and sobbed into her shoulder like he hadn't done since he was a small child. "I'm sorry, Mama," he cried, his whole body shaking. "I'm so sorry for everything. For all the pain I caused you. For all the shame. For not listening. For being wicked. For breaking your heart every single day. Mama, please forgive me. Please." Mrs. Adebayo pulled back to look at his face, her hands cupping his cheeks, searching his eyes. What she saw there made her cry even harder. But these were tears of joy and relief and hope. Her son had come back to her. And more than that, Her son had changed. She could see it in his eyes. The hardness was gone. The cruelty was gone. The stubbornness was gone. In their place was remorse, humility, and love. "Mama, I promise you," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "I promise I will be good from now on. I will be obedient. I will make you proud. I will become the son you always wanted. I swear it on everything." Mrs. Adebayo hugged him again, and they stood there in their small house, holding each other and crying as the sounds of Christmas celebration filtered in from outside. Word spread through Adekunle like wildfire. Marcus Adebayo had returned. From where? Nobody knew for certain. But something had happened to him, something profound. Over the following days and weeks, the change in Marcus was undeniable and impossible to ignore. He went to every person he had wronged and apologized, genuinely, sincerely, with tears in his eyes. He went to Baba Tund and worked in his yam farm for free for 2 weeks to make up for the destroyed crops. He went to Mama Ngozi and washed dishes at her buka every evening to repay the food he had stolen. He went to Pastor Adeyemi and asked for forgiveness, then volunteered to clean the church every Saturday. He went to Mrs. Okafor and begged her forgiveness, promising to be a model student if she would give him another chance. He even found the puppies he had hurt. They had survived, and spent days caring for them, bringing them food, making sure they were safe. The town watched in absolute amazement. Some were skeptical at first, thinking it was an act. But as days turned into weeks and weeks turned into months, the change remained consistent. Marcus Adebayo had transformed. His friends, Tommy, Emeka, Chitty, and Tund, were especially affected. They watched their former leader become humble, kind, and respectful. Slowly, inspired by his example, they too began to change their ways. Tommy's mother said to Mrs. Adebayo one day at the market, "I don't know what happened to your son, but it's like he came back from the dead. It's a Christmas miracle." Mrs. Adebayo smiled through tears. Yes, it is a miracle. Years later, Marcus would become one of the most respected young men in Adekunle. He would help rebuild the community hall he had once vandalized. He would tutor younger children for free. He would start a youth group focused on positive values. And every Christmas Eve, Marcus would take his younger cousins and the children of the town to the edge of Ojo Street, never beyond the halfway point, and tell them the story. Some believed every word. Others thought it was exaggerated. But everyone agreed on one thing. Something miraculous happened to Marcus Adebayo that Christmas Eve. Something that proved it's never too late to change. And every Christmas Eve, if you walked down Ojo Street just as the sun was setting, some people swore you could see an old man in a faded agbada, standing in the shadows, watching over the town, making sure its children remembered the most important lessons of all. Respect your elders. Be grateful for what you're given. Obey those who love you. And never, ever let pride and stubbornness lead you down a path of destruction. Because one day, you will meet someone who will teach you these lessons the hard way. And that day might change your life forever.